States National Park Service manages 423 properties and areas in all 50 states and some overseas territories, such as American Samoa, pardon me, and the Virgin Islands. See, when we talk about national parks, our mind, goes to things like the Grand Canyon, Sequoia, Yosemite, Yellowstone, but we forget that the National Park Service has lots and lots of types of properties that they manage. Only 63 of them are national parks. We have a new one recently. The 63rd, actually, the newest is here in Virginia. The New River, southwestern part of the state. Pardon me with my voice today, everybody. Which is ironically a very old river. I don't know why they call it the New River anyway. And I've got a book right here that was sent me by another learner, Moon's Guide to the 62 National Parks, brand new book, but it already is obsolete because it doesn't have the 63rd. So you have 63 national parks, but we have 61 national historical parks and 74 national historical sites. Now, those three categories right there make up half of the types of properties that they manage. So that's, about over 200 or close to 200. And what's the difference between a national historical park, a national historical site, national park? Well, national park has an outdoor, something to see outdoors, where a historical park is there's something historical about that place. And then there's historical sites, which might just be a building or a couple buildings together, not a very large property. That's what we have more of than anything else in the system, national park system. And then there's a national battlefields, battlefield parks, battlefield sites. Like here in Virginia, we have various battlefield sites from the Civil War and Yorktown from the Revolutionary War. There are also national seashores, like one I've been to. I've been to a couple, one in the last few years. Assateague Island is a national seashore that I go to, and Cape Cod also is a national seashore. Some of the other types of designations that are in the system, there are lake shores. So those of you up in Michigan, you have two national lake shores, Bear Dunes, and actually you have three. You have Bear Dunes, you have Painted Rocks, and Isle Royale. Isle Royale is actually not a national lake shore, it's a national park. There are national recreation areas, so often those are like dams where they've got a lake. There are scenic rivers, of which there are many. There are monuments, which might just be an obelisk or something somewhere. And there are trails, and trails are not necessarily, they could be like a walking or biking trail. They could also be like a long route from, it's 500 miles long through various states. They now some of those designated as national trails. This is one near me. This is actually very nearby. This is the C&O Canal towpath, and it's a national park site, and it combines actually a bunch of these kinds of things into it, because I think it might be a trail and a river and various things all together. It's this Chesapeake and Ohio towpath, goes from Cumberland, Maryland to Washington, D.C., 185 miles. You can bike it. It is really fun to bike. I have biked it. That's what it looks like. Double track. This is the old towpath from the canal. The canal ran over here to the right of it. This is where there was a lock.
I thought that looked familiar. I was going to ask you where that picture was taken, because it looks like we've been there before.
If you've biked it, you've been there. I don't remember which lock number this is. I could probably figure that out, but there's 74 locks, I think, along 73 or 74 locks along the towpath. And it's really an incredible experience to bike it. It's believe it or not, very remote. 180 some miles from Washington, D.C. along the Potomac River is very remote. You go through the Allegheny Mountains and you can feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, because you are in the middle of nowhere is how it feels anyway. So a lot of those sites do not have entrance fees. This is Point Reyes National Seashore. I think it's a national seashore. It's in California. This is north of San Francisco, and I've been there. I've been out to that lighthouse. It's really a great place to be. And it didn't cost anything to go in there. You could just park and walk in. It's like a half a mile walk in. I jumped ahead. Take a guess which one had the most visitors last year. I just gave it away. Blue Ridge Parkway, which is a national parkway, had the most numbers of visitors, and they're kind of, visitors, people that drove along it count. So in 2020, it had the most. Of the national park system, the 63 national parks, anybody want to take a guess which one had the most visitors?
Grand Canyon.
Good guess. Grand Canyon. Anybody else want to guess anything else besides the Grand Canyon? Yellowstone. Good guesses. Well, those of you who are in the East shouldn't be surprised. Great Smoky Mountain National Park had the most visitors of anyone last year. That's because the East Coast is very densely populated, and it's an easy place for a lot of people to get to. It's in Tennessee and North Carolina. For me, it's like a 6-hour drive. So anybody in the Carolinas, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, Virginia can get there. Well, Maryland, really. It's very popular. Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Last year, there were 237 million visits to the entire system. That was a decrease of 28% from the previous year. That's because many of them were closed during COVID-19. That's a picture of me with my son in the one that's closest to where I live. Anybody know where that one is? I'm in the Shenandoah Valley of Western Virginia. I should have mentioned at the outset. That is Shenandoah National Park, which has something going through it called a Skyline Drive. And we are on a hike off of Skyline Drive in the Shenandoah National Park. It's a fabulous park. It is a little over an hour. One end of it is a little over an hour from Washington, D.C., a couple hours from Baltimore, an hour and a half from Richmond. And very popular place for hiking, but the best part about it is the drive along it. Skyline Drive is 105 miles long. It has something like 70 overlooks. So every mile or two, you just pull right over and you can look out either east or west into the Shenandoah Valley, or east back over in the Piedmont to Eastern Virginia. And it is laced with hiking trails. Actually, the Shenandoah National Park used to be settled. It was the top of the mountains, had people living there. And when it was made into a park, a lot of those people had to leave. They didn't all leave. Some of them got to stay there till they died. Anyway, it's beautiful. I love the mountains.